So I've never heard of Beast Quest before. There's supposedly a series of books meant for young readers that tries to lure in kids that may not really be into reading on their own. Apparently they are more popular in the UK, which is why I never heard of them here in the US. But in my recent stop to a game store, I was looking for review material and stumbled upon Beast Quest on PS4. Oddly enough, it's the same trip I made when I picked up Space Chimps. That game ended up being fairly decent, if not anything inventive. Beast Quest, on the other hand, I looked at the cover and thought, again, there's no freaking way. It looks like a low-budget Zelda title. Well, after playing it for a while, I changed my mind. It's not a Zelda clone. It is its own thing, but the thing it's aiming for isn't really that good. Back to the game case. On the back, there's no freaking way the graphics look like that top picture. It just looks like a hand-drawn piece of art from one of the books. No biggie. Wait, Maximum Games. Why does that sound so familiar? Wait a minute. Oh, God, no. Oh, no. Oh, yeah, it's the same publisher as Road Rage. That is a great hint of what's to come. And I'm going to warn you now, there may be some spoilers later on in the review. So if for some reason you want to play this game, just be forewarned. Before I get to any potential spoilers, I want to at least hint on what little bit of story there is in this RPG. That's right, another RPG with hardly any plot behind it. You play as a boy named Tom, who is shown just swinging a wooden sword at nothing with, of course, no parental supervision whatsoever. Some weird wizard shows up and asks Tom to grow up fast and go save 4 mythical creatures that have been enslaved by the evil wizard Malvo. Apparently, these creatures were thought of as non-existent legends, but have been secretly protecting the domain of Vantia from harm. So Malvo, for some reason, put spells on them to make them go crazy. And why send a knight, crusader, priest, or hunter after the creatures when you can send a frickin' preteen boy? And of course, Tom is like, yay, I get to be a hero, and runs on to fight the first creature, who happens to be a frickin' dragon. And that's all you get for the story. About an hour or so in, you meet your first companion, a girl named... well, the name escapes me as I write this. But anyway, she decides to follow you in your insane quest, and can be called upon in combat to unleash a devastating arrow volley to your enemies. There are 4 other companions you can find, as in, once you save one of those creatures that Malvo claimed, they'll join you as well. And they're usually a good option to have, so why does the girl keep following you? And hold on. This girl is a hunter that fires 1 arrow, and it splits off into multiple others to do hundreds of points of damage. Yet she couldn't take down 3 freaking wolves? And she gives you crap because Tom looks too small to be a knight. Well, Tom the freaking child just saved your pathetic ass. So as Tom, you'll run headfirst into a lot of different enemies. And so I may as well talk about the combat since you'll be spending almost as much time in these as you do in the loading menus. Once you get into a battle, you're rooted to your spot. You'll find that the battles are overly simplistic. You press circle to bring up your shield to attempt to block an attack. You press triangle for a strong attack and square for a quick, weaker one. In some situations, you may need to move to the left or right of the initial standing spot by pressing the shoulder buttons, but this is pretty rare. You can also press left or right on the D-pad to evade attacks that way. Truthfully, most of the battles result in just spamming square. Yes, you can hold down triangle to do a pretty overpowered overhead strike that does damage to enemies out of your normal range, and holding square sweeps the sword in an area of effect attack. But those usually aren't needed. Leveling up a bit, you can easily spam square to defeat all enemies before they can even get one attack in. Because of this, the game is stupidly easy, even on the hardest difficulty. There are 2 other gauges other than your health that you'll want to keep an eye on. The yellow bar is your brave meter, which is used to activate your abilities. Most skills require 3/4 of the bar to be filled up, and many of the skills result in some pretty heavy damage to your opponents. Late in the game, 2 normal swipes filled this up, so I was able to end most battles within literal seconds. There's also the small bar that's set up between your health and brave meters. This is your companion meter. Every time you strike your enemies, it will charge little by little. Once this is full, you can press L1 and R1 to summon your companion for that massive damage I talked about earlier. Do yourself a favor and just save these for the boss enemies. Speaking of the bosses, they are extremely limited and are reserved for a few of the Hunter's side quests and the 4 mythical creatures. Each of the main bosses must be defeated 3 different times, and the only one that actually gets interesting is the Yeti, since you get your shield knocked loose and must run around the field looking for it, then get close enough to attack. You might think that you would fight Malvo at the end in some epic battle, but nope. Here's the obligatory spoiler alert. The Phoenix drags him into a volcano. Tom cries a bit, thinking that the Phoenix is dead, clearly not knowing what a Phoenix is made of, and the older wizard says, "Yo, dumbass, it's a bird made of fire, he good." Although the game is now officially completed, you can then keep running around the world with a Phoenix summon to finish off any remaining quests, if you're missing a few trophies. The Phoenix summon is pretty useless at this point though, since it simply replenishes your health. I don't think health is a concern this late in the game anymore. So let's talk about your evasion techniques. You want to do this more than simply block. If you can dodge at the right time, the enemy is open to a counterattack, which does a good chunk of damage. The game also tends to slow down when you're doing this, so you'll have more than ample time in order to press square to initiate the counter. As I was playing the game, I was trying to find a way to best describe the combat, and about 3/4 of the way through the game, I figured it out. It's freaking Punch-Out! Seriously! You attack as often as you can, and every once in a while move left or right to dodge an attack. Like Punch-Out! It's a freaking modern take on Punch-Out! Unlike many other RPGs, there's not really a normal XP system. Instead, in Beast Quest, you earn ability points. You use these ability points to purchase and upgrade one of 25 skills. There's a dozen skills that are usable in combat, and another dozen that increase the health, attack, defense, and critical stats. The final skill is a simple passive ability that allows you to equip 2 relics as opposed to the default one. Each of the skills can only be purchased and not upgraded in any form, and only one of each element can be equipped at any one time. The stat upgrades can be upgraded in 3 different levels, in 3 different tiers. This system doesn't entirely make sense. The way it's laid out, you can sometimes get into a situation where you can either spend 50 points for a 2-point upgrade, or 50 points for a 5-point upgrade. Oh jeez. I wonder what I should choose. It's okay though, because if you're a completionist like I am, you'll be doing a lot of backtracking to finish all quests, and by doing so, you'll have no problem acquiring enough ability points to fully overpower Tom. Oh, and speaking of completion, this game is ridiculously easy to platinum if you're interested in it. Like seriously, you can get it done in about 6 hours or so. Okay, maybe more. But it doesn't take more than a few hours to do if you start the game on the hardest difficulty available. I didn't, so I had to play it twice, but it really wasn't that big of a deal. But then again, you'll be spending a lot of time just sitting there waiting for the game to load. Get the popcorn ready, or get ready to get up and take a leak or make a sandwich or something, because we're doing a real-time counter for the loading time. Still waiting. Almost there. Yep. Ah, there we go. Just make sure you're going the right way, because sometimes I've actually spawned in facing the wrong direction and have to sit through another 35 seconds of loading, then turn around and go back to where I had originally anticipated. So yeah, a little over a minute and a half of just sitting around waiting for a frickin' PS4 game to load. Why is this still a thing in this day and age? You have games like GTA 5 or Assassin's Creed that require minimal loading, but a simple kids game takes this long to get everything put into memory? Come freaking on. And that's not the only problem with the game. There's plenty of bugs that I've encountered. So just like I did in Sonic 06, let's list them. For one, jumping feels lagged. It often feels like you need to press the X button a second or so before you actually reach the edge of a platform. If you fall down, it's not that big of a deal as you just take a sliver of damage, but if you haven't paid the money to upgrade your health potions, you could be in a dangerous situation if you find a particularly difficult jump. Speaking of the health potions, you can find a merchant that allows you to pay gold for potion capacity and potency upgrades. as well as potions for health and bravery and the occasional relic. The problem is, without talking to the man, you never have realized he's a merchant. The tutorial never brings up this fact, and this NPC is probably the most important one due to the upgrades. One of the first oddities I found was that a lot of the textures are surprisingly low resolution. Whether it be a mound of dirt or a large rock, I thought the texture wasn't loading, but no, it's just horrible looking. That's not even mentioning a few of the floating objects, such as rocks and trees not being fused to the ground. I know that's a common thing in some AAA games, such as most Bethesda games, but still, it requires mentioning. In one of the boss battles, I found there was a small black bar that kind of resembled an empty enemy health meter. But why is it there? No bosses had any companions with them, with the exception of the phoenix spawning in some other birds. When I played the game again on the hardest difficulty for the platinum, I noticed it again, but it was in a different boss battle. In one late part of the game, I saw an enemy glitch right through the ground. At least I was still able to complete the battle, but I was a bit concerned that would have prevented me from proceeding, as there was no way to flee battles in the game. Back to the jumping. About 3/4 into the game, you get the ability to glide by holding your shield above you. But when doing so, it's not smooth in the least. It's just jarring to watch. Finally, I even had the menu glitch on me. At one point, I wasn't able to move the cursor around on it. I could bring the menu up and put it away, but I couldn't actually navigate it. Wasn't there any QA done on this game? I doubt it. So that's me finishing the bugs that I wrote down, but I still have a bit left to talk about. Most games nowadays have some sort of collectible, but in Beast Quest, you just find 3 different versions of keys. These keys are used to open appropriately colored treasure chests, which gives you gold, and in the case of gold chests, sometimes a relic. There aren't enough keys to open up every chest, but don't sweat, because the relics aren't entirely useful. I didn't really notice much of a difference between anything, so I just kept the 10% bonus gold item equipped. If you're expecting puzzles in the game, well, you'll find a few, but they are simple block pushing puzzles. Blah. And that's it, other than a labyrinth you encounter in the late game. But again, fear not, as there's arrows painted on the walls that show you exactly where you need to run to. As for the enemies you'll be running up against, you'll see bandits, wolves, eagles, goblins, skeletons, golems, and spiders. I think that's it. Seriously. There's not even really any kind of palette swaps. Enemies just have different health by the looks of it, but come on guys. It's a fantasy game with hardly any fantasy. Oh, I almost forgot about the pathfinding line. If you click the touchpad, you'll see a glowing path that will show you to your next objective. Maybe. Seriously, it didn't always work properly. Sometimes it shows you the right path, but other times it will lead you right into a wall. I think what the game is trying to do is show you how you can get to an area beyond the wall, instead of showing you the actual path around, but why include a helper line if it doesn't always work? Let's talk about the visuals. The game looks like a low-end PS3 game. Frame rate occasionally chugged. The intro scenes are still shots that scroll, kinda like Road Rage, and I already mentioned the lackluster low-reg boulders. Even the characters lack a real sense of detail. The animations are jerky and feel like something out of a crappy modern kids show. Add in the fact that I felt like the game plays with the camera zoomed in a bit too far, and it just helps lead to that low-budget feel. That's it. That's all I can do for Beast Quest. The Metacritic ratings are scathing, and for good reason. I mean, the game is playable, but why would you want to when there's so much more better content out there? I think I spent $25 on this and I regret it. Space Chimps was more of a deal than this. It's not that it's a bad game. It's just boring. I understand that it was meant for kids, but I can't even imagine kids that would get any enjoyment out of this. This deserves to be in a bargain bin game for $5 or less. Anything other than that is a complete waste, so if you absolutely must add it to your collection, make sure you find it in either the cheap bin or the dumpster. Final score? 3 out of 7. This is Reaper. Happy fragging.